Hey guys, it's Greg here, and I have a special treat for you. Well, I don't know if it's a treat or not, but last night I somehow blew up my Home Assistant application trying to install a Home Assistant core update. Something went wrong, horribly wrong, I guess I should say. And then today, when I tried to fix it, I couldn't get my wireless network card to be recognized. No matter what I tried, I just couldn't seem to solve the problem. So I've decided to start over and redo my computer setup from scratch. So that'll include installing Linux Mint. And then after that, we'll install VirtualBox and then finally Home Assistant. So kind of give us a start to finish setup for installing Home Assistant on a Linux machine right from the start. So you know, bad news for me, but good news for you, I guess, because you can watch the whole process. And then at some point, we're gonna do an episode on backups so that I don't lose my setup again. So the first thing I did was I went out to the Linux Mint website and I downloaded the Linux Mint 22.20 version. That's what I'm going to use. I picked a host. I think I picked Purdue Linux user groups. I'm from Indiana, so Purdue University's website. And I've now downloaded that, so it just shows up as a download in my download folder. So if I go look at my downloads, there it is. Now we can't just take that ISO file and just stick it on a flash drive. We need to use some kind of program to make a bootable flash drive. So if you're a Windows user, one of the best ones I think is called Etcher. And I'm going to pull up my copy of Etcher if I can find it. Still getting used to Windows. There it is. Bellina Etcher. I don't know what Bellina means. So this is pretty straightforward. So we're going to flash from a file, that one that I just showed you that we downloaded. I'm going to pick it from the list and say open. And then the second part of this is to pick a target. I forgot. I'm going to pop out my thumb drive and put it back in. I just made this a bootable disk, but I'm going to do it over again so you can watch. So select the target. It only shows you the flash drives generally, so I'm going to pick that one. And that's it. And I say flash. Now this is going to run for quite a while, a good 10 minutes or so. So I'm not going to make you watch all this, but as soon as we see that it's starting to run, I'll pause the recording and we'll let it do its thing, and then I'll pick you up once the file is written out to the thumb drive. Okay, so Etcher has finished up the flashing part of the process. It wrote everything out to the thumb drive, and now it is in the process of doing a validation, verifying that the ISO file is correctly written out to the thumb drive and that it'll be ready to use. So we'll let that finish, and then we'll pick up from there. I'll be switching over to a handheld camera because I don't have screen capture on the machine that we're going to be installing Linux on for the first time. So we'll have to do that one a little bit more manually, but hopefully you'll get the idea. So it's almost finished, and then we'll be switching over. All right, so we switched to our handheld computer or handheld camera, and I am going to do a restart on this computer. It has Linux Mint on it, but we're going to wipe it out and kind of start over. Now, in order for me to do this and start from the flash drive that we just created, I have to interrupt my boot sequence, and I need to go down and change I'm going to change the boot sequence. So I want it to start from my flash drive. So I'm going to hit enter here, and it should reboot now from the flash drive, hopefully. I think. Yeah, it did. So this is the boot screen, basically, from the new Linux Mint thing that we're going to do, right? So there's a couple of interesting things in here. We could run Linux Mint right from the flash drive, and we could do that. Instead, I'm going to go down here to install. Now what this should do is it should launch the actual Linux Mint installation routine, which is going to allow us to pick our country, all kinds of information, and save it, and then install it to the hard drive. It'll also let us pick where we're going to install it and things like that. It is pretty impressive that you could run Linux Mint right from that flash drive. The only problem with doing it that way, well, several, it's slow. And two, you don't really get to save all of your settings. Things can go a little bit haywire when you're running it all from the flash drive, I found. I much prefer running it right off of the hard drive. So it's taking its sweet old time, but again, it is booting up from a flash drive as opposed to a regular hard drive. In the past, some of the earlier Linux versions that I've tried to use were so difficult to use because they didn't include drivers for, a lot of video cards and things, or hardware drivers for network cards, and it seemed like I had a lot of trouble trying to play around with Linux early on, just because I'm not a hardware geek, and I didn't have all the drivers for things, and I just found it pretty difficult. Okay, so we finally made our way to the install screens. It's going to ask us, for a bunch of things. We're going to pick English. We're going to pick our keyboard layout. So we're going to leave it as English, US. We're going to pick a Wi-Fi network to connect to. Put in our password. I'm going to go ahead and install this. It does take a little bit of time, and I might pause the video while it's doing that, but I do install the codecs. Just, I don't know if I'll ever need them or not, but figured why not do it. So now it's giving us some options here, and these are pretty critical options. We can erase Linux Mint and reinstall. We could install this
alongside our current version of Linux Mint. And the advantage to that is some files and things would still be available. I don't really have anything on here that's critical that I need to keep, so I'm going to just do the erase and reinstall option. There is something else you can do with creating partitions and things if you really are into that kind of thing, but I'm going to skip all that. And I'm just going to be, actually I'm going to erase the disk because I don't know if there's some residual junk from that virtual machine in there, but I keep getting error messages. So we're going to pretty much start from scratch. And I'm going to say install now. Going to give me one last, this thing is going to be wiped out. Are you sure? And I said yes. So it's going to run for a while now. I can also pick things like where am I? I am in the Eastern time zone right now, so we'll leave that. Get to give it a computer name. I'm going to call this create a master password, and boom. And now it's going to start copying files and doing a lot of stuff. So I'm going to pause the video here because it's going to take a little bit. And I'll pick you back up as soon as this thing is finished up.
Well, hey, we lost a little bit of our screen capture video yesterday as I was installing VirtualBox on my Linux machine. Something happened and we kind of missed some of the video. So I'll explain real quick that on my Linux machine, I use the software manager in Linux and just basically said, install VirtualBox. Now, it's not the most current version of VirtualBox, but it works on my computer fine, and I had some issues with the newer version for some reason. I had some error messages that I couldn't resolve. So I went back to the one that I knew worked, which is the version that is included in the Linux software manager. So somewhere we lost a little bit of the video, but that's basically what I did. And then we're going to pick up the installation of VirtualBox from that point.
It'll ask you for a password, and boom, Bob's your uncle. It's installing. Now, I will tell you that I've already installed this, so it's going to already have a copy of Home Assistant in here, but I'm going to walk through just how you would add another instance of Home Assistant. But as I've been working on this, I did install it and then uninstalled it so that I could show you how easy it is to reinstall. But I left the Home Assistant virtual machine on the computer, so it will show up as soon as we launch VirtualBox. But I'll show you how to add it again. It's really not too difficult. I don't know why, but when I tried to run the most current version of VirtualBox, I was getting some errors, and I believe it has something to do with the VKM kernel. There was some online references to it, and at a certain point, VirtualBox changed something, and my machine would not run properly for some reason. So I went back to this version, which I had used before without problem. So, okay, so VirtualBox has loaded and installed. You'll notice up here I put a shortcut to it just because I like to keep it handy. But for right now, we'll just launch it from the installation software. So as you can see, we've already got a Home Assistant entry in here. Just to show you how we would do it, I'm going to add a new one. I'm also going to check expert mode here. And I'm just going to call this one HA2. I'm probably not going to keep it on here for long. We don't need to specify an ISO image. We do need to change, though, that this is a Linux application, not a Windows application. So Linux, I'm going to leave the default at Oracle Linux 64-bit, which is what mine is. I'm going to go into the hardware section. The most critical thing here is to enable EFI. It's only used for certain things, but Home Assistant will not boot without that check. So you need to check that. I'm going to increase the processors to give it 4 processors. I think I'll increase the RAM a bit. And then I'm going to go down to the hardware, or the hard disk one, and here's where we are going to set up our virtual image. I've already done it once, so it's in there, but I would do an add. Remember, we downloaded this file. So there it is in our downloads. Choose that one, and that should do it. And then I'm going to say finish. Okay, now there's one other thing we want to do once we create that virtual machine. We go into the settings, and under network, we need to change this setting here from whatever it pops up with to bridged adapter. That's critical that you say bridged adapter. Few other things. We've already got USB turned on. We've got audio turned on. On mine, for some reason, the screen looks really small when the Home Assistant app is running, so I'm going to blow mine up to 200%. You may or may not need to do that. On a different computer, I didn't need to do that, but in this one I am. I think those are all the settings that I'm going to change, and I'm going to save them. So now, when we launch this by hitting the start button, we're gonna see the virtual machine kick on and go through its boot sequence. So let's give it a try and see if we got it working this time. Now that screen looks really big. It normally doesn't look that big, so I'm not sure why it looks that big, but hey, at least I can read it, I guess. It's a little bigger than I thought it would be. Maybe I went more than 200%. But the system is going through its startup. This is exactly what we're looking for. We're watching for the green OKs. Even if you have something that says it failed, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily a critical failure. See, my time didn't synchronize for some reason. I don't know why. And on the last time I restarted it, it did work. So it's hard to say. But it's going through its various processes and doing its thing. Eventually, we will get a Home Assistant logo. There it is there. I got the screen so blown up right now. It's a little too big. And a couple of things that, are important. One is, you're looking for this system is ready. Use the browser to configure notice. And two, well, 3 things maybe. You can access Home Assistant via this URL, homeassistant.local8123, port 8123. Sometimes it doesn't work with that local, and you want to just do Home Assistant :8123. And I don't know why that is, but I found that to be true. And then importantly is this IP address up here. That would be your local IP address that will launch Home Assistant. So let's pause here and we'll come back and launch Home Assistant for its initial onboarding.
All right, in another video, I talked a little bit about the importance of Tailscale, a VPN system that allows you to access your Home Assistant from anywhere you can get internet connectivity. And since we wiped out our system, we're going to be reinstalling Tailscale from scratch. So I thought I might as well bring you along while I do that as well. So this is my Linux machine running Home Assistant, but I'm accessing the Home Assistant machine through a browser on the same computer. So the first thing I did was I went to settings and add-ons. And under add-ons, you click on the add-on store and you search for, in this case, Tailscale. I pick it. This is where I'm at now, and I'm going to go ahead and have it install Tailscale on this computer. Actually, on this virtual machine. You could run Tailscale also under Linux, but this specifically allows us to access this Home Assistant application remotely using Tailscale. I'm going to add a couple other little settings here. So it's now installed it. We have to start it to run it, but I'm going to set a couple of settings. I'm going to basically turn it on over here on the sidebar so I can easily get to it if I need it. And then I think all I need to do is hit start. Now, in order for us to really use Tailscale, we need to log in. And I'm not sure exactly where we do that. I'm looking here. I'm on the log list. No errors reported. It's doing some work now in the background. And I think at some point it's going to have us go to a URL where we can do our login. And I believe that is this one right here. So you notice it says to authenticate, visit, and it gives us a login and a unique URL. So I'm going to copy that link. I'm going to go to a new browser window where I'm going to access that. And I'm going to be using Google as my login. So I'm just going to click on Google. I'm going to pick my account, get my phone ready because it's undoubtedly going to, Google's going to want to do something. It says we're done. I guess you'd be directed or you can visit the console immediately. So we're going to go to the console, make sure everything is working. Looks like it is. There's our bunch of my systems. This is the one that blew up right here. So we're probably going to get rid of that one. This is the new one. And I think we're good other than that. So this one here we're going to remove. And I'm going to make a note of this URL and this Home Assistant URL. This one is the one I'll use most of the time. So I just copied that to the clipboard. And if we paste it in, it doesn't, well, let's see. I don't know if we have to put in the 8123 or if it does it automatically. Oops, got a extra each in there. All right, I don't know why we're not getting there.
I'm a fairly smart guy most of the time, but sometimes I just do some really dumb things. And as you were watching that video, I couldn't seem to connect to my Home Assistant Tailscale URL. And the reason I couldn't is because I was using my Linux box, which did not have Tailscale on it at the time, to try and access via Tailscale the URL for the Home Assistant instance. So off camera, I installed Tailscale on this Linux computer, the one that I happen to be using trying to access Home Assistant, and then everything worked. So like I said, I'm usually a pretty smart guy, but that was not exactly a smart move. All right, so I've switched now over to my main computer and the webcam here. Excuse me, so we can watch what happens now on our Home Assistant host machine. So Home Assistant, you don't normally use the computer that is hosting that server as the computer that you access Home Assistant with. So I'm on a separate computer now, but I am accessing my Home Assistant server using a browser. So this is the IP address of my computer that's running Home Assistant, or the Home Assistant instance, I guess. And this is kind of the welcome screen that pops up when you have a new Home Assistant application. We are going to create our smart home by clicking on this button and letting the system run through a new onboarding. If we had a backup, we could do a backup and restore from a backup. Unfortunately, I didn't have that set up on mine when things went south. So we'll be having another lesson at some point about backing up Home Assistant, but not today. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Start, and the first thing it's going to want to know is, what are we going to call? What are we going to call this place? I'm going to call it Seasons. That's the development. Oh wait, that's not what we want. This is my name, and we need to create a password. Confirm the password. Nope, that's not what I want to use for that. I'm not sure just where all this is used, but I'm going to make it a meaningful password. This never works right, and I don't know that I'm going to worry about it too much. We can change this at some point later. This is, basically telling Home Assistant where you're located. If I put in something like my zip code, oh, it did work. Okay, so we'll use that for now. We can fine tune it to our address later, I think. But most importantly, this gives us time zones and things that we're in. I'm gonna go next. It found a bunch of stuff already just by plugging it in and turning it on, and we'll be looking at these various things in a bit. And we'll say finish. And we just created our very first smart home. Now there's not a lot in here, and we're going to go through activities involving adding things, creating things. We'll go into adding new devices and things like that. But for right now, our home assistant is up and running. That's important. It's found a bunch of stuff. That's important. And we will begin building some automations and some other things as we move forward. But I think we'll stop this video here for now. We'll pick up later with a couple of things to make our home assistant, our smart home, more meaningful, more useful. One of the things I will be doing first is using this Sun entity uh, in companion with some of my smart switches to turn on exterior lighting at certain times of the day and turning them off at certain times. So that's a pretty easy one to do. We'll build a calendar. We'll pull in today's weather, this week's weather. We will build a dashboard that will allow us to pretty easily navigate to a bunch of these things that we create. So stay tuned, and if you're enjoying what you're seeing and you don't want to miss an episode, please feel free to subscribe. I'd love to get some more subscribers to my channel, whether you are a smart home interest or a sailing interest. I hope you would subscribe to the channel. And for now, we'll say so long. Hey Google, turn off the family room lights.
2 lights off.